7 years ago, a young woman stood in her family's hallway holding a folder that could have changed her entire life. She wasn't asking for money. She wasn't asking for permission. She was asking for one chance, one interview, one opportunity to finally build a future of her own. But her family had other plans. Her mother stepped in front of the door. Her younger sister dropped a diaper bag at her feet, and her father looked at her with a smile she would never forget. People like you don't chase dreams. You carry everyone else's. For years, she had raised children that weren't hers, worked endless hours without pay, sacrificed every goal, every opportunity, every piece of freedom so the rest of her family could live comfortably. And still, it was never enough. That morning, they expected her to do what she had always done: stay quiet, stay useful, stay trapped. Instead, she stepped over the diaper bag, walked through the back door, and disappeared. The family called her selfish, ungrateful, a failure. What she didn't know was that before the week was over, someone would secretly destroy the job she had fought so hard to earn. And for 7 long years, she believed she had failed, until a single job application landed on her desk. The name at the top stopped her cold. Her younger sister. The same sister who had helped trap her. The same sister who now wanted a job at the company where she worked. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was the experience listed on the resume. Because every achievement, every responsibility, every accomplishment on that page belonged to her. And before this was over, a lie buried for 7 years was about to explode in front of everyone, including the people who started it. From the outside, the Harper family looked ordinary: a respected small business, a neat suburban home, church on Sundays, family dinners every week, the kind of family neighbors described as blessed. But inside that house, there was an unspoken rule. Everyone's needs came first, except hers. At 21 years old, Claire Harper had already become the person everyone depended on. Her younger sister Megan had a 3-year-old daughter named Sophie. Whenever Sophie needed someone to feed her, Claire was there. Whenever Megan wanted a night out, Claire was there. Whenever plans fell apart, Claire was there. At first, it sounded temporary. Just an hour here, a weekend there, a quick favor between family members. But temporary slowly became permanent. Months turned into years. And before Claire realized what was happening, she wasn't living her own life anymore. She was maintaining everyone else's. Every morning, she answered phones at her father's heating and cooling company, scheduled appointments, handled invoices, spoke with customers, fixed mistakes, organized records, solved problems, work that would normally require a paid office manager. But Claire wasn't paid. Whenever she asked about compensation, her father always gave the same answer: family helps family. Strangely, that rule only seemed to apply to her, because her sister never worked at the company, never answered phones, never handled customers, never sacrificed weekends. Yet somehow she was still treated like the family's success story. And Claire, the person carrying everything, was treated like she should simply be grateful. Then one quiet evening, after putting Sophie to bed and finishing company paperwork at the kitchen table, Claire opened her laptop, and for the first time in years, she started looking for a way out. What she found would change everything. But the opportunity she discovered was about to force her family to reveal exactly how far they were willing to go to keep control of her life. For years, Claire had convinced herself that things would eventually get better. Maybe her sister would become more responsible. Maybe her parents would finally appreciate everything she did. Maybe one day someone would notice that she was carrying the weight of an entire family on her shoulders. But deep down, she already knew the truth. Nothing was going to change. Not unless she changed it herself. So every night after finishing company paperwork, after washing bottles, after putting her niece to bed, Claire opened her laptop. While everyone else slept, she studied. Free business courses, project management lessons, office software certifications, anything that might help her qualify for a real job. The process was slow, painfully slow. Some nights she barely kept her eyes open. Other nights she fell asleep at the kitchen table. But she kept going, because every certificate she earned felt like another brick in a bridge leading away from that house. Months passed. Then one rainy Tuesday evening an email arrived. Claire almost ignored it. She expected another rejection, another polite message thanking her for applying. Instead, she froze. A company in a nearby city wanted to interview her. A real interview, a real salary, health benefits, career growth, a future. Her hands trembled as she reread the email. Then she read it again. And again. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a different life, an apartment that belonged to her, a paycheck with her name on it, weekends that weren't spent raising someone else's children. Freedom. She printed the email and folded it carefully, not because she was excited, because she was afraid. Afraid her family would find out, afraid they would stop her. Afraid they would do exactly what they had always done whenever she tried to put herself first. So she told no one. The interview was scheduled for the following Monday. 5 days away. 5 days to protect the secret. 5 days to protect the only opportunity she'd had in years. And as the interview date got closer, a feeling settled in her stomach. A feeling she couldn't explain. As if somewhere deep inside, she already knew her family wasn't going to let her leave quietly. What Claire didn't know was that the morning of her interview was about to become the day that changed every relationship in her life forever. The morning of the interview arrived faster than Claire expected. Too fast. She barely slept. Her outfit was ready the night before. Carefully chosen, pressed, and hung like a promise she didn't fully believe in. At exactly 10:45 a.m., she walked down the stairs holding her resume folder. Her heart was already racing. This wasn't just an interview, it was her only way out. But the moment she reached the hallway, everything stopped. Her mother was standing in front of the front door, arms crossed, waiting, not surprised, not confused, just ready. Behind her, her sister walked in casually, holding a child on her hip and dragging a large diaper bag across the floor. She dropped it right at Claire's feet. Hard, final, like a command. "Watch the kids," her sister said without even looking at her. "I've got plans." Claire blinked. "I can't today. I have an interview." Her father appeared behind them, calm as always, almost amused. He took one look at her and shook his head. Then he said the words that froze everything. "People like you don't chase dreams. You carry everyone else's." Silence filled the hallway. The clock ticked somewhere in the background. 11:02 a.m. Claire had a choice. Stay again. Or finally break. Her eyes moved from the diaper bag to the child, to the door that had always been blocked by expectation. Something inside her snapped quietly. Without speaking, she stepped forward, over the diaper bag, past her sister, past her mother. Her father didn't stop her. He didn't need to. He already believed she would come back. Claire walked straight through the house, but instead of the front door, she turned and reached the back door no one was guarding, the one they never thought she would use. And when it opened, she didn't look back. But what Claire didn't realize was that walking out of that door wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of a betrayal she wouldn't discover for 7 long years. The back door closed behind her with a soft click, but it felt like a thunderclap. Maisie didn't look back, not once. The April air hit her face like something new, cold, real, free. Her feet carried her down the driveway before her fear could catch up. Every step away from that house felt illegal and necessary. Behind her, her phone kept buzzing. 6 missed calls. She didn't answer. At the bus station, she stood in silence, holding a $17 ticket like it was her entire future. When the bus finally arrived, she didn't hesitate. She got on, and for the first time in years, no one told her where to sit. But freedom has a strange taste, because Maisie had no idea that walking away was only the beginning, not the ending, not even close. The bus didn't feel like a vehicle. It felt like distance, turning into reality. Maisie sat in the back row, clutching her bag like it might disappear if she let go. Outside the window, Riverside slowly dissolved. Buildings became fields. Fields became nothing. And for the first time, no one was telling her what she was allowed to be. Her phone stayed silent now, not because it stopped ringing, but because she stopped looking. At one point, she whispered something only she could hear. "I'm not going back." Her voice shook, not from fear, from disbelief. Because freedom doesn't feel powerful at first, it feels unfamiliar and lonely. But what Maisie didn't know was that leaving was the easy part. Surviving what comes after, that's where everything truly begins to break or build. The bus stopped with a soft hiss. Columbus, a name that sounded like possibility. Maisie stepped down slowly, adjusting her blazer that still didn't quite fit right. The city felt larger than anything she'd ever known. Louder, faster, indifferent. She checked her watch. 2 p.m. Her interview had already started. Her stomach dropped. Then her feet moved, running. Not because she was confident, but because she couldn't afford to lose this too. 3 blocks. 1 building. 1 chance. She reached the glass doors at 2:02, sweating, breathless, still standing. Inside, a woman in a sharp suit looked up and smiled. "You made it." But Maisie didn't realize that the people watching her walk into that room would one day remember her face for a very different reason, one she couldn't possibly predict. The conference room felt colder than it should have. 3 people, 1 table, 1 young woman trying to hold her future together with calm breathing. Maisie sat straight, hands still, voice controlled. They asked questions, skills, experience, pressure, responsibility. Each answer she gave was careful, precise, real. No exaggeration, just truth shaped into professionalism. And slowly, something shifted. The panel stopped looking at her like she was just another applicant. They started listening. Really listening. When they asked about her background, she hesitated for half a second, then said, "I've learned how to manage chaos without letting it show." Silence followed. Not awkward, interested. The lead interviewer made a note. Maisie didn't know it yet. But that one sentence was the beginning of everything changing. Because outside that room, someone had already decided she didn't deserve to succeed. And that decision was already in motion. Maisie left the building lighter than she arrived. Not because everything was perfect, but because hope had finally felt real again. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine it. A desk of her own. A salary that belonged to her. A life not built around someone else's needs. That night, she slept on a borrowed couch. Phone on silent. Waiting. 1 day passed, then 2, then 7. On the 8th day, the email arrived. Subject line, decision regarding executive assistant position. She opened it slowly, read it once, then again. "We regret to inform you." The words blurred after that. Maisie sat still. No crying, just silence that felt heavier than rejection. Because deep down, something didn't feel right. But she had no proof, only doubt. and doubt was not enough to fight back with. What she didn't know was simple. She hadn't just been rejected, she had been removed. And the reason wasn't her performance. It was someone who knew exactly how to destroy her chance before it even began. After the rejection, life didn't stop. It simply became smaller. Maisie took whatever job she could find: retail, temporary office work, late shifts that ended when the world was already asleep. Nothing stable, nothing impressive, but enough to survive. She lived in a tiny apartment where the walls carried other people's noise, and every night she studied. Free courses, certifications, anything that could turn starting over into something real. Some nights she cried quietly into her pillow, not from sadness alone, but from exhaustion that had no witness. Months passed like that, then years. Slowly, things began to change. A better job, a better offer, a better version of herself emerging piece by piece. But she never forgot one thing: how easily everything had been taken from her once, and how carefully she would have to build it back. Because just when Maisie thought the past had finally stayed buried, an unexpected name appeared on her screen, and everything she thought she had healed started to reopen. 7 years later, Maisie wasn't surviving anymore. She was thriving. A respected HR director, a quiet apartment, a peaceful life she had built from nothing. Then one ordinary morning, she opened a list of new job applications. Names, resumes, experience. Click, scroll, click. Then, she froze. One name, Bryn Wright, her younger sister. Maisie stared at the screen. After 7 years, out of thousands of companies, Bryn had unknowingly applied to hers. It couldn't be planned. It couldn't be coincidence. But it was real. And with one click, the past walked back into her office. What Maisie found inside that resume would reveal a betrayal far bigger than she ever imagined, and it would change both of their lives forever. 7 years earlier, they stole her opportunity. Now fate had quietly placed her sister's future in her hands. But Maisie wasn't looking for revenge. She wanted the truth. Maisie took a slow breath and opened the application. The resume looked polished, professional, confident. Everything seemed normal, until she reached the employment history. Operations manager, family-owned HVAC company, 3 years of leadership experience. Her eyes narrowed. She read the bullet points again. Scheduling technicians, managing customer records, handling invoices, improving office systems. Every achievement sounded painfully familiar, because none of it belonged to Bryn. Those weren't her accomplishments. They were Maisie's. The same unpaid work she had carried for years was now sitting on her sister's resume under someone else's name. Maisie leaned back in her chair. For a moment, the office disappeared. She wasn't looking at a job application anymore. She was looking at stolen years of her own life. But proving a lie is very different from suspecting one. And Maisie knew exactly where to look next. Maisie didn't make any assumptions. Years in human resources had taught her one simple rule: trust evidence, not emotions. She opened Bryn's public work history. Job after job lasted only a few months. Retail, reception, temporary office work. Nothing matched the 3 years of management experience listed on the resume. Then she opened Meridian's archived hiring records. One search, Maisie Savage. 2 files appeared. One from the year she was hired. The other from the interview she never forgot. She clicked it. The interview feedback was excellent. Strong communicator, highly capable. Recommended for hire. Her heartbeat quickened. Then she noticed a red flag attached to the file. Do not proceed. An email was attached. Anonymous. Sent the morning after her interview. It claimed she was unstable, irresponsible, a risk to any employer. Maisie read every line in complete silence. Every accusation twisted the truth. Every sentence sounded strangely familiar. Someone hadn't simply criticized her. Someone had carefully tried to erase her future. She closed her eyes for a moment. 7 years of self-doubt suddenly felt different. Maybe she had never failed at all. But one question still remained. Who had sent that email? And could she finally prove it? Maisie wasn't interested in revenge. She wanted proof. Using company procedure, she began a routine employment verification. The number on Bryn's application led to one place: Savage Climate Control. The phone rang. Then a familiar voice answered. Her father. For a brief second, 7 years disappeared, but Maisie's voice never changed. Calm, professional. She introduced herself as Meridian's HR director and requested employment verification for Bryn Wright, without hesitation. Her father confirmed everything, that Bryn had been operations manager, that she had worked there full-time, that she handled scheduling, billing, and daily operations. Every word sounded confident. Every word was false. Maisie documented each answer carefully. Then she asked one final question. During those same years, did anyone else perform those responsibilities? A long silence. Then came the answer. No. Maisie quietly thanked him and ended the call. She looked at the recording saved on her computer. She now had exactly what she needed. Not opinions, not memories. Evidence. She opened Bryn's application one last time. At the bottom of the file, she typed a single note. Employment discrepancies identified. Candidate requires in-person clarification. Then she clicked Send interview invitation. A week later, Bryn accepted the invitation. She had no idea. The HR director waiting to interview her was the sister she had betrayed 7 years earlier. 7 years ago? Maisie walked out through a back door with nothing. Today, the same sister who once looked down on her was about to walk through the front doors of Maisie's office. Neither of them would leave the same way. Monday morning arrived. Maisie reviewed the interview file one final time. Every document was in place: the resume, the verification notes, the archived email. Everything was ready. At exactly 9:58 a.m., the receptionist called. Your candidate has arrived. Maisie stood, straightened her blazer, and walked toward the lobby. There she was. Bryn. Older. More tired than Maisie remembered. She clutched a portfolio with nervous hands, scanning the office with hopeful eyes. Then their gazes met. Bryn froze. The color drained from her face. Maisie? Maisie offered a polite, professional smile. Good morning, Ms. Wright. I'm Maisie Savage, HR Director. Please follow me. Not a trace of anger. Not a trace of satisfaction. Just professionalism. Bryn followed in silence. Every step down the hallway felt heavier than the last. When they entered the interview room, 2 senior managers greeted Bryn with polite smiles. The interview began like any other. Questions, experience, leadership, teamwork. Bryn answered carefully, confidently, until Maisie calmly turned one page of the resume, then asked a single question. Can you tell us more about your operations manager role at Savage Climate Control? The room became perfectly still. Bryn believed she could keep telling the same lie. She had no idea. Maisie already had the proof waiting on the table. The first few questions were routine. Bryn answered them with growing confidence. Then Maisie placed a printed copy of the resume on the table. She gently tapped the section labeled Operations Manager. Can you confirm this information is accurate? Bryn nodded. Yes. Maisie slid a second document across the table. The employment verification. Your former supervisor confirmed this position. For a brief moment, Bryn looked relieved. Then Maisie spoke again. So did the anonymous email that was sent to this company 7 years ago. Bryn's expression changed. She looked down at the page, then back at Maisie. Without raising her voice, Maisie continued. I found the archived file. I know my interview wasn't lost. It was sabotaged. Silence filled the room. Bryn's shoulders slowly dropped. I never thought you'd find out. The words escaped before she could stop them. Tears filled her eyes. I was desperate. I needed a job. I didn't know what else to do. Maisie listened without interrupting. When Bryn finished, she quietly closed the file. This interview is over. As HR director, I cannot move forward with an application containing false employment history. Her voice never changed. No anger, no revenge, only responsibility. A moment later, security arrived and politely escorted Bryn from the building. Maisie remained seated, looking at the empty chair across the table. 7 years earlier, she had walked away with nothing. Today, she walked away with the truth. But the story still wasn't over. Because a message arriving weeks later would come from the one person Maisie never stopped loving. The days that followed were quiet. Maisie blocked every attempt her family made to contact her. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel guilty. She felt free. A few weeks later, an unexpected message appeared on her professional social media account. It wasn't from her parents, or from Bryn. It was from Olivia, now old enough to ask her own questions. The message was simple. I found the birthday cards you sent me every year. Mom said you abandoned us, but people who leave don't keep sending cards. Maisie read those words through blurred eyes. She replied with care. She didn't speak badly about anyone. She simply told Olivia the truth, that she had always loved her. And that whenever Olivia needed encouragement about school, work, or life, her aunt would always answer. That small conversation became the beginning of a new relationship, not one built on obligation, but on choice. Months later, Maisie stood in her office mentoring a young employee during a hiring workshop. The new coordinator asked, "What's the most important lesson in recruitment?" Maisie smiled. Always verify the facts. But never forget that every resume belongs to a real person with a real story. As the young coordinator walked away, Maisie glanced out the office window. 7 years earlier, she had stepped through a back door believing she had lost everything. Now she understood the truth. She hadn't lost her future. She had walked toward it. Sometimes the hardest door to leave behind is the one that finally leads you home. The strongest revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's building a life they can no longer control. Some wounds never receive an apology, but they can still heal. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's building a life they can never take away. If this story stayed with you, please like this video, subscribe to Revenge Diary, and share it with someone who needs the courage to choose themselves. Until the next story, take care.